What would you do if you had 30 seconds to escape a burning building? You could only carry one burden, and you had to choose between saving a 6-month-old baby or 4 German Shepherd puppies who were crying for their mother who would never come back. That's exactly the impossible decision Navy SEAL veteran Axel Thompson faced when a house fire turned a routine welfare check into the most heartbreaking moral dilemma of his life. But what Axel didn't know was that the choice he made in those 30 seconds would reveal a family secret so devastating it would expose a network of child trafficking, animal abuse, and corruption that reached the highest levels of local government, and prove that sometimes the right choice is the one that breaks your heart. This is the true story of a fire that revealed more than flames, a choice that saved more than lives, and the moment when "I can't save them all" became the words that would haunt a hero until he found a way to save everyone that mattered. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments, and if you believe that some choices are impossible until you find the courage to make them anyway, hit that like button. You're going to need every bit of strength you have for this one. Now, let's begin. The emergency call came to Axel Thompson at 2:34 a.m. on a Wednesday in May, interrupting his sleep at the Montana cabin where he lived with the expanded Midnight Brotherhood: Scout, Ranger, Angel, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. House fire at 1247 Riverside Drive. Sheriff Chen's voice was tight with urgency. Structure's fully involved, but we're getting reports of possible occupants still inside. You and the Brotherhood are our fastest response for search and rescue. Axel was already reaching for his tactical gear, his thick, dark beard still bearing the creases of sleep, but his weathered military features immediately hardening into the focus that had served him through countless emergencies. "What's the occupancy status?" Axel asked while Scout, Ranger, and Angel moved into their emergency response positions. "Unknown. Property belongs to Margaret Westfield, 73 years old, lives alone. But neighbors reported hearing crying from inside. Could be human. Could be animals. The structure's too compromised for standard fire department entry." Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. Now full-grown German Shepherds whose bond with Axel had made them legendary in search and rescue operations were already at the door with their protective equipment. The drive to Riverside Drive took 12 minutes through the Montana darkness, but Axel could see the orange glow from 3 miles away. By the time they arrived, the 2-story house was completely engulfed, with flames shooting through the roof and black smoke billowing into the star-filled sky. Fire Chief Rodriguez met them at the perimeter. "Axel, this structure's maybe 10 minutes from total collapse. We've got water on it, but the interior's a furnace. If there's anyone inside—" "I hear them," Ranger interrupted with a sharp bark, the alert signal that meant he'd detected human or animal voices from inside the building. Axel listened carefully and caught what Ranger had heard. Faint crying coming from somewhere inside the inferno. But the sound was confusing. It seemed to be coming from 2 different locations within the house. "Chief, I'm going in," Axel announced, checking his breathing apparatus and thermal protection gear. "Negative. Structure's too unstable. We've called for specialized equipment, but in 10 minutes, whoever's in there will be dead," Axel interrupted. "Scout, Ranger, Angel, perimeter search for safest entry point. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, stand by for emergency extraction." The Midnight Brotherhood immediately deployed with the coordinated precision that had made them famous. Within 3 minutes, they had identified the least compromised section of the house, a side entrance that might allow access to the ground floor. Axel made entry through a window that Scout had identified as structurally sound, immediately finding himself in a smoke-filled hellscape where visibility was 0 and the temperature was approaching lethal levels. Following the sound of crying deeper into the house, Axel navigated by touch and instinct through what appeared to be a living room filled with debris from the collapsing ceiling above. That's when he found the first victim. In a back bedroom, protected by a heavy dresser that had fallen across the doorway, was a baby carrier containing a 6-month-old infant. A little girl with dark hair and frightened eyes, alive but clearly in distress from smoke inhalation. "Got a baby alive but critical," Axel radioed to the emergency teams outside. But as he secured the infant for evacuation, he heard the other crying more clearly, and his heart stopped. The sound was coming from the basement. Moving to the basement stairs, which were partially collapsed but still navigable, Axel discovered something that changed everything about the situation. In a makeshift kennel area in the basement, behind metal caging that had been deliberately locked, were 4 German Shepherd puppies, roughly 8 weeks old, crying desperately for their mother, who lay motionless on the concrete floor beside them. The puppies were trapped, terrified, and would die within minutes from smoke inhalation if they weren't rescued immediately. But Axel now faced an impossible equation. He could carry either the baby or the 4 puppies to safety. The structure was too unstable for multiple trips. He had one chance to save lives, and he had to choose who lived and who died. The baby girl looked at him with trusting eyes, depending on him for survival. The 4 puppies cried for their dead mother, and for rescue from a situation they couldn't understand. Both were innocent. Both deserved to live. Both were counting on him, and he could only save one group. Axel, structure integrity failing rapidly, came the urgent radio call from outside. You have maybe 2 minutes before total collapse. Standing in a burning basement with smoke filling his lungs and time running out, Axel Thompson faced the kind of choice that would define not just who lived or died, but who he was as a person. The choice he made in the next 30 seconds would haunt him for the rest of his life, but it would also expose a truth so horrific that saving lives would become the least important part of what he'd accomplished. Because sometimes the most impossible choices reveal the most hidden truths, and sometimes what appears to be a tragic dilemma is actually the first piece of evidence in a crime that no one suspected was happening. Standing in that burning basement with 90 seconds left before the house collapsed, Axel Thompson made a decision that would defy every expectation and reveal the true nature of heroism. He didn't choose. Instead, using the tactical thinking that had kept him alive through 8 years of Navy SEAL operations, Axel created a third option that shouldn't have been possible. Quickly assessing the structural damage around him, he spotted a basement window that had been boarded up from the outside, but the fire had weakened the wood enough that it might be breakable. If he could get the puppies to that window, the Midnight Brotherhood could extract them while he carried the baby through the main evacuation route. Scout Ranger Angel, he radioed with urgent precision, northeast basement window, prepare for emergency puppy extraction. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, standby for multiple casualty rescue. Working with speed that came from years of life-and-death operations, Axel broke the basement kennel locks and gathered all 4 German Shepherd puppies into an emergency carrier bag. The puppies were weak from smoke inhalation but alive, their cries becoming softer as the toxic air took its toll. He carried the puppies to the basement window and used his tactical knife to punch through the fire-weakened boards. Fresh air rushed in, and he could see Scout, Ranger, and Angel positioned outside, ready for emergency extraction. Take them, Axel said, passing the carrier through the window to Scout, who had been trained in emergency casualty transport. Get them to the medical teams. The Midnight Brotherhood immediately coordinated the puppy evacuation while Axel raced back through the collapsing basement to where the baby waited. 60 seconds to structural collapse. Axel secured the 6-month-old infant against his chest and began the desperate climb up the partially collapsed stairs as ceiling beams fell around them. The baby's breathing was labored from smoke exposure, but she was conscious and fighting to survive. 30 seconds. Moving through the main floor with visibility near zero, Axel navigated by memory and instinct toward the window where he'd entered. Behind him, he could hear the groaning of support beams that were about to give way. 15 seconds. Axel dove through the exit window with the baby just as the structure behind him erupted in a shower of sparks and collapsing timber. He hit the ground hard, but managed to protect the infant from impact, rolling away from the building as the entire second floor pancaked into the basement. Outside, emergency medical teams immediately took custody of both the baby and the 4 German Shepherd puppies. All 5 were alive, all 5 were breathing, and all 5 owed their lives to a split-second decision that had turned an impossible choice into a coordinated rescue operation. But it was what the fire investigation teams found in the ruins that would transform this rescue story into something much darker. Dr. Sarah Martinez was treating the 4 rescued puppies when she noticed something that didn't fit with a routine house fire scenario. Axel, she said while examining the smallest puppy, these dogs show signs of systematic neglect and possible abuse, malnutrition, fear responses to human contact, and surgical scars that suggest they've been used for breeding purposes. Meanwhile, Dr. Rebecca Chen was examining the rescued baby at the hospital when she made a discovery that stopped her cold. "This infant shows no signs of living in that house," she reported to Sheriff Chen. "No smoke residue that would indicate long-term exposure, clothing that's too clean for someone who lived in a fire-damaged environment, and most importantly, she's not Margaret Westfield's grandchild or any relation we can identify." Fire investigator James Morrison was examining the basement ruins when he found evidence that would expose a criminal operation that had been hidden for years. "This wasn't a residential basement," Morrison reported. "This was a breeding facility. We've got specialized kennel systems, medical equipment for animal breeding operations, and documentation that suggests this was a commercial puppy mill operation." But the most disturbing discovery came when investigators found Margaret Westfield's body in an upstairs bedroom, dead for at least 3 days before the fire started, with evidence suggesting she had been murdered to cover up something much larger than animal abuse. "The fire was deliberately set," Morrison concluded. "Someone killed Westfield, then tried to destroy the evidence by burning down the building. They didn't count on anyone being inside when they lit it." Sheriff Chen assembled the evidence and realized they were dealing with something unprecedented, a murder designed to cover up both a puppy mill operation and what appeared to be illegal activities involving the baby that Axel had rescued. "The infant isn't Margaret Westfield's," Dr. Chen reported during the investigation briefing. "According to DNA testing, she's not related to anyone in our local database, and the puppies show evidence of forced breeding in conditions that violate every animal welfare law in Montana." That's when they discovered the connection that tied everything together. The baby carrier had been stolen from a family in Colorado 3 weeks earlier during a home invasion. The infant was Emma Rodriguez, who had been abducted from her parents' home and was apparently being held at the breeding facility for reasons that investigators were still trying to understand. The 4 German Shepherd puppies were the offspring of stolen breeding dogs that had been used to produce valuable canine bloodlines for illegal sale to underground fighting operations. Margaret Westfield had been killed because she had discovered the operation and threatened to report it to authorities. This rescue wasn't just about saving lives from a fire, Sheriff Chen realized. Axel uncovered a human trafficking and animal abuse network that we never knew existed. But the investigation was about to reveal something even more disturbing. The criminal network extended far beyond one house in Montana, and the fire had been set by people who would kill anyone who got too close to the truth, including Axel Thompson and the Midnight Brotherhood, who had just made themselves the biggest threats to a criminal organization that had been operating undetected for years. The impossible choice that had saved 5 lives was about to put 8 more lives in deadly danger. 3 days after the rescue, Axel Thompson became the target of a criminal organization that would stop at nothing to silence the man who had accidentally uncovered their multi-million-dollar trafficking operation. The first attempt on his life came at 4:17 a.m. when professional assassins tried to burn down his Montana cabin while he slept. But the Midnight Brotherhood's protective instincts had evolved beyond normal dog behavior. Alpha detected the intruders 200 yards away, Bravo identified accelerant fumes before the fire started, and Charlie's alert barking woke Axel in time to coordinate an escape that saved all 9 lives. "They're not trying to rob you, Axel," Sheriff Chen said while examining the tactical equipment left behind by the failed assassins. "These are professional killers using military-grade weapons and coordinated assault techniques. You've uncovered something that threatens people with serious resources." But it was FBI Special Agent Maria Santos who revealed the true scope of what they were dealing with. "The organization you've stumbled onto operates across 7 states, Agent Santos explained during an emergency briefing at an undisclosed location. "They steal high-value breeding dogs and children, run illegal puppy mills and human trafficking networks, then eliminate anyone who gets too close to their operations." The evidence was overwhelming. Margaret Westfield had been murdered because she'd discovered that her property was being used as a distribution center for stolen children and dogs. The baby that Axel rescued, Emma Rodriguez, was one of dozens of children who had been abducted and were being held at various locations while buyers were found. The 4 German Shepherd puppies represented millions of dollars in genetic value, stolen from elite military and police canine breeding programs to produce dogs for underground fighting operations and private military contractors. They've been operating for at least 5 years, Agent Santos continued. Conservative estimates suggest they've trafficked over 200 children and 500 high-value dogs. Margaret Westfield's murder was supposed to eliminate the last witness to their Montana operations. But Axel's rescue had done more than save 5 lives. It had exposed the entire network to federal investigation. Now they want you dead because you're the only person who can identify the physical layout of their Montana facility, Agent Santos explained. And they want the Midnight Brotherhood eliminated because those dogs can potentially track scent trails back to other facilities. What followed was the most dangerous period of Axel's life since his military service. The criminal organization launched a coordinated campaign to eliminate him and his dogs using tactics that demonstrated sophisticated planning and unlimited resources. Professional snipers attempted to ambush him during his daily runs with the Midnight Brotherhood, but Echo's ability to detect elevated heart rates from long distances had evolved into supernatural threat awareness that saved their lives. Vehicle bombs were planted along routes that Axel routinely traveled, but Delta's neurological detection abilities had expanded to include identifying explosive device timers and electronic signatures. Poisoned food was left at locations where the dogs normally exercised, but Bravo's medical detection capabilities allowed him to identify toxins before any of them were exposed. They're not just trying to kill you, Agent Santos observed after the 4th failed attempt. They're learning about your dog's abilities and adapting their tactics. These people understand that the Midnight Brotherhood isn't just a search and rescue team. They're a tactical advantage that could expose their entire operation. The breakthrough came when the criminals made their biggest mistake. They tried to use Emma Rodriguez as bait to draw Axel into a trap. The baby who Axel had rescued from the fire had been placed with a foster family while her parents recovered from injuries sustained during her original kidnapping. But the criminal organization had infiltrated the foster care system and knew exactly where she was being held. They've taken Emma again, Agent Santos reported during an emergency call, left a message saying they'll trade her life for yours. They want you to come to their main facility alone without the dogs. Axel looked at Scout, Ranger, Angel, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo, 8 magnificent German shepherds who had become his family and had proven time and again that they were more than just animals. They were warriors, healers, and partners who understood that some missions required risking everything to save innocent lives. Agent Santos, Axel said with the quiet authority that had commanded respect in the most dangerous situations, I appreciate the FBI's concern for my safety, but that little girl has already been through 2 traumatic kidnappings. She's not going through a 3rd. Axel, this is a trap. They're using Emma to get you into a kill zone where they can eliminate both you and any evidence of their operations. Then I guess we'd better make sure the trap doesn't work. What Axel was planning wasn't a rescue operation. It was a coordinated assault designed to dismantle an entire criminal network while saving Emma Rodriguez and any other victims being held at their facilities. But it would require the Midnight Brotherhood to operate at levels of coordination and tactical awareness that would push their abilities beyond anything they had ever attempted. The criminal organization thought they were luring 1 man and 8 dogs into a trap. They were actually about to face the most elite search and rescue team in American history, operating with the tactical precision of a military unit and the protective instincts of a family fighting for one of their own. The impossible choice that had started with a fire was about to end with a battle that would either save dozens of innocent lives or cost everything Axel had built with the family he had chosen. But sometimes the most dangerous missions are the ones you undertake not because you have to, but because you're the only one who can. The warehouse complex outside Billings, Montana looked abandoned from the outside, but thermal imaging revealed the truth. Dozens of heat signatures indicating both human and animal prisoners being held in what appeared to be a distribution center for the trafficking network. Working with FBI tactical teams, Axel coordinated an assault plan that would utilize every specialized ability the Midnight Brotherhood had developed over years of search and rescue operations. We've got 47 children and approximately 60 dogs being held in that facility, Agent Santos briefed the combined law enforcement team. The criminals are expecting Axel to walk in alone through the front entrance. Instead, we're going to hit them from 8 different directions simultaneously. Scout, Ranger, and Angel would lead the primary breach, using their original search and rescue expertise to locate and extract the youngest victims. Alpha would coordinate perimeter security, ensuring no criminals escaped during the operation. Bravo and Delta would focus on medical triage for rescued victims, while Charlie would provide psychological support for traumatized children. Echo, the smallest member of the Brotherhood whose cardiac detection abilities had evolved into supernatural awareness, would have the most critical job, locating Emma Rodriguez among dozens of children in a facility designed to hide victims from rescue operations. "These dogs aren't just search and rescue animals anymore," Agent Santos observed as she watched the Midnight Brotherhood prepare for deployment. "They're a coordinated tactical unit with capabilities that exceed most human teams." But Axel knew this mission was different from anything they had ever attempted. They weren't rescuing victims from natural disasters or accidents. They were going to war against people who had made a living out of destroying innocent lives. "Listen up, Brotherhood," Axel said to his 8 partners as they prepared for what might be their final mission together. "Today, we're not just saving lives, we're ending something evil that should never have existed in the first place." 8 pairs of amber eyes looked back at him with the intelligence, loyalty, and determination that had made them legendary. This wasn't just a rescue operation. It was a promise kept to every victim who had ever needed someone to refuse to give up on them. The assault began at exactly 3:47 a.m., the same time Axel had first received the emergency call that led to this moment. What followed was the most coordinated law enforcement operation in Montana history, but it was the Midnight Brotherhood who turned a tactical assault into a miracle of precision rescue. Scout, Ranger, and Angel breached the main facility and immediately began systematic victim location, moving through the complex with the efficiency of a search grid designed to miss no one. Within 30 minutes, they had located and guided tactical teams to 17 children being held in hidden compartments throughout the building. Alpha's perimeter security proved critical when 3 carloads of reinforcements arrived to support the criminals inside. Using tactical awareness that combined his natural protective instincts with years of training, Alpha coordinated law enforcement positioning that resulted in the capture of 12 additional suspects without a single shot being fired. Bravo and Delta worked together to assess the medical condition of rescued victims, identifying children and dogs who needed immediate emergency care and ensuring that medical teams prioritized treatment for the most critical cases. Charlie's psychological support abilities proved invaluable when several rescued children became hysterical with fear and wouldn't cooperate with rescue teams. His gentle presence and intuitive understanding of trauma somehow calmed terrified victims and helped them understand that their nightmare was finally over. But it was Echo who accomplished the impossible. In a facility designed to hide victims from detection, Echo used her cardiac detection abilities to locate Emma Rodriguez in a soundproof room 30 feet underground, accessible only through a hidden entrance that no human search would have discovered. When tactical teams reached Emma's location, they found her healthy but terrified, clutching a small stuffed animal and asking for "the nice man who saved me from the fire." "Echo led us directly to her," the rescue team leader reported. "That dog somehow detected the baby's heartbeat through concrete and steel barriers that should have made detection impossible." By dawn, the assault had resulted in the rescue of 47 children and 63 dogs, the arrest of 23 criminals, and the seizure of evidence that would lead to the dismantling of trafficking networks across 7 states. But for Axel, the mission's success was measured by a single moment when he was reunited with Emma Rodriguez in the medical triage area. The 6